quick audio check, guys. Hope the audio is audible, loud and clear.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. I can see a lot of participants has already joined our webinar today, the much talked about one. We'll be exactly starting at 1:03 in the next 2 minutes. We're just waiting for a couple of our more panel members and esteemed participants to join in shortly. It's very overwhelming to see a full house today. And first of all, I would quickly like to introduce myself quickly. My name is Avi. I'm actually handling the entire customer success and client engagements here at QuickLaunch. And our main prerogative was to mainly talk about the entire user lifecycle management. I would like to call it that way. And of course, through our module, which is basically automated user provisioning, which takes care of the entire user lifecycle management. Shortly, we'll be joined by our panel members. We have New Mexico Junior College also on board today for this particular webinar. So we'll be talking more about these facets of user lifecycle management and how to probably maintain a proper IT infrastructure with a good posture for all higher institutions across North America. That's our main prerogative today. And this will be a conversational webinar, gentlemen and everyone. So we would really appreciate any questions that's coming from your side, and we'll urge you to come up with more questions during the entire course of the webinar. We'll be also having a Q&A session by the end of the webinar. We'll open up the forum for the questions and answers. But of course, I will definitely personally urge you all to come up with as much as questions possible that's coming to your mind during the entire course of webinar, and we'll try to answer everything possible at one go. I've been also joined by my marketing team, who is specially handling the entire webinar today and piloting the entire show today. Adam, you can probably give me a thumbs up when we can probably start it if it's 1:03 already.
Yes, so we can start, Avi.
Great, thank you, Adam. So good afternoon, everyone. Once again, welcome to the webinar for QuickLaunch automated provisioning. It's mainly talking about how New Mexico Junior College actually use provisioning and how we can learn from them, how we can learn the architecture type of their entire provisioning structure that we have been talking about, that entire thing. Let me just quickly move to the next slide for this presentation. So first of all, we have a round of our key presenters today. We have just wanted to let everyone know about one thing. Bill Kunko, who is the Chief Information Officer at New Mexico Junior College, unfortunately, he's not keeping well. And so he couldn't attend today's meeting, but he has sent his best regards to everybody present on this particular panel. We'll be meeting him soon, probably in the upcoming webinar series of ours. You'll get to see him a lot. He'll be talking about cybersecurity infrastructure items. Today, we have been joined by George Garcia, who's the database administrator at New Mexico Junior College. He has been running the show for the entire QuickLaunch engagements, primarily the entire automated provisioning, user lifecycle management, managing the identity platform for New Mexico Junior College. So he's there. He'll be talking more today about the entire provisioning structure. We have been also joined by Brandon Black. He's the Vice President, Sales Engineering of QuickLaunch. And then we have Jim Knutson. He's the Vice President, Customer Success here at QuickLaunch. So we have a full esteemed house of our execs today, mostly harping on the lines of user lifecycle management and cybersecurity infrastructure. That's what our main prerogative is. So I would rather open up the forum for these esteemed gentlemen to start talking about today's webinar, set the agenda and context and everything. And the same thing, we'll urge everyone to come up with as much as questions as possible. We'll be taking up the Q&A session almost by the end of the webinar. And of course, post this particular webinar gets over, we'll be sharing a broadcast email to all our customers, to all our panel members, everyone who has joined today, and will be with the entire recording of this particular webinar. And we also have some sort of announcements by the end of the webinar that we'll be waiting for everyone to showcase. So let's do one thing. I think the best one would be talking about the introduction part. So I'll hand over the forum to who wanna come up first. George, let's start with you first. If you can talk about New Mexico Junior College yourself, and then it'll go to Brandon and Jim. Thank you.
Okay. Sounds good. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon in some cases. George Garcia, Database Administrator and Programmer Analyst. I've been with New Mexico Junior College going on 19 years now. Actually, I've been here a lot longer. I was a student, work study and part-time, and then came back for a full-time position. So I've been here for over 20 years. Of course, I maintain all the Oracle databases that we have on campus, mostly related to Banner and DegreeWorks. All related Banner products, projects, interfaces, upgrades, and patches I handle. And I do some report writing as well with Argos. New Mexico Junior College was established in 1965. Our vision is to build a culture that values and promotes excellence, effectiveness, responsiveness, access, and community involvement. Our mission is to provide success through learning. We offer a wide array of athletics, men and women's basketball, track, cross country, golf, rodeo, men's baseball, women's volleyball. And we also have campus housing. We offer dorms and apartments, and we're actually looking to expand in the next few years. So that's a little bit about New Mexico Junior College. You know, we offer degrees including Associate of Arts, Associate of Sciences, and Applied Sciences, along with some certificates. We do a lot of workforce training. We're in the oil field area, so that's big for us. We do work with high schools on dual credit, early college. So we have some really good relationships there as well. So that's just kind of a summary about New Mexico Junior College. You want to move to the next slide?
Yep, thanks, George, for the entire introduction of New Mexico Junior College. Brandon, some words from your side? Brandon, are you?
Sorry, I was on mute.
No worries.
Yeah, we're excited to work with New Mexico Junior College, and we've done some great work there with our provisioning tools, and so hopefully we'll be able to share that with you more today.
Great. Jim, over to you.
Yeah, thanks. Just for a quick introduction. So I'm relatively new to QuickLaunch. I've been here for about 2 months now. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success. Prior to coming to QuickLaunch, I was at Okta for 7 years, where I helped build a support organization as well as a customer success organization there. In addition to that, I spent 4 years with one of Okta's partners, and I built out a service management business there. I'm excited to be here at QuickLaunch and excited to work with our awesome customers that we have so far. So thank you very much for the introduction, Avi. Back to you.
Thank you, Jim. That was a well-rounded introduction for every esteemed panel members over here. We will now move over to the next slide for this particular webinar. Now, it's mostly about let's understand the tech stack of New Mexico Junior College, because everything will start from the particular fact that how we actually thought about provisioning, how New Mexico Junior College, what I can say, came up with the pain points regarding their existing setup with respect to user lifecycle management. And so the best possible way, or the principal fundamental way, is to understand the existing tech stack of New Mexico Junior College with respect to their ERP solutions in place. So some words from your side, George, and if you can just take us through with respect to the applications that is on board right now on screen. And of course, you can talk about the other ERP solutions that you have in place and how exactly the kind of structure that you have and how then things unfolded. Over to you, George.
Okay, so we implemented or started implementing Banner in 2004. We first went live with finance, and then we moved on to student financial aid the following year, and then the last piece was HR and finance. Finished that up by 2006. As of now, we are completely on Banner 9, except for our admissions process, because many of you are probably aware that Lucian did not implement that for Banner 9. So we are actually in the process of implementing CRM Recruit and Advise. We also have Ethos in place. We're looking to leverage some systems with that. We're implementing Chrome River for the finance side. We're also implementing a product called eRes Life for housing. Our LMS is Canvas. We've been using that for several years now. We started with Blackboard, but we have transitioned to Canvas. We've been very happy there. We started out with Outlook a long time ago, and we've recently migrated to Office 365, and actually was in conjunction with this automated provisioning project. So that went very well. And then of course we're using QuickLaunch's SSO manager. We're using the password manager. We're using the first time user process. We're using MFA multi-function authentication. And we started that SSO, I believe, back in 2017 is when we went live with it. So very pleased with all of their products there.
That's great. I mean, that was really good in terms of the kind of environment that you kind of described to us. George, can we talk a little bit about, for all of our panel members and esteemed participants who have joined the particular webinar, can we talk about a little bit on the pain points that you started facing before QuickLaunch came into the picture with respect to automated provisioning? How was the structure before? How were things being handled? If you can just throw some more light on that for our customers to understand. Probably a lot of people in the forum would be able to resonate with your previous mindset or the previous structure that was there in New Mexico Junior College with user lifecycle management.
Absolutely. So I believe back in 2010 or somewhere around there, we were kind of posed with a project because we never had mailboxes for our students. And so we wanted to start giving NMJC mailboxes to our students. We were on Exchange back then, and we really didn't have a solution. So I was kind of ahead of the project on how to get users created in Active Directory, and then as well as create mailboxes. So we kind of, had some in-house scripting. We used some Banner triggers on some tables, packages, and procedures, in addition to some Oracle jobs that would FTP, some of the information over to our Exchange server. And then we would use PowerShell scripts to create the user and create the mailbox. And I was really a novice with PowerShell. I did not know a single thing about PowerShell at all. And so that was kind of a pain point for me. I had to research and learn how to do that. And so it took several months, but we finally had a plan in place. It wasn't the best, I'll admit. It was not the best, because there was times where, scripts would fail, or FTP sessions would, fail, and the file would never get to Exchange, or it would get there and then something would happen with running the PowerShell scripts. So there was, I would say 90% of the time it was, perfectly fine, but there was always that, few people a semester that wouldn't have a mailbox, and we would have to run some manual things to create the mailbox on the fly. Back then, we were using Luminous. We were told it was a single sign-on solution, and when we actually got into the implementation, it was not a true single sign-on solution. So we were doing a lot of scripting to make that piece work. And finally, we were kind of frustrated with it, and we started, researching a true single sign-on system. And that's when we started looking at QuickLaunch's solutions. And we've been blessed ever since then. Since we've done the single sign-on and the password manager, our IT staff is, it's really not involved with when students have trouble, because every semester we would have an orientation where we would sit down with students and make sure everything worked. And we no longer have to do that. Our help desk and emails, as far as on the IT side, is next to none. That's all taken care of through the help desk, and it's really not even anything you can help a user. If they forgot their password, or if they, we have account recovery options in place where they use an email, secondary email, text message, or we use Google Authenticator as well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's times where we find that, most of the students' problem is that they've either forgot their password to their personal email and they don't have access to it anymore, or they've changed phone numbers, and that's kind of out of our control. So most of that is on the student now. We have, where they can look up their username, providing some information, reset their passwords on their own. And then most of our end users take care of helping students using the help desk app that QuickLaunch has provided. So it's really been a truly blessing on my end, because it was, every time a semester started, I was just bombarded with, trying to help students. And now I'm pretty much out of the picture. And so that's been a huge thing for me.
That's great. I believe that's how we were connecting the dots, right? We started discussing about how actually user lifecycle management got sorted with the new structure in place with the automated provisioning, and then how actually transcended into the entire user lifecycle management by kind of connecting the dot with single sign-on process too, because it takes care of authentications, it takes care of password resets. That's again like another module from QuickLaunch, because we are not only restricting ourselves only to provisioning. We have been like some sort of pioneers in the single sign-on module in the higher ed sector. So that is also a great thing that actually took place with New Mexico Junior College. For the participants who have already joined this particular webinar, we were listening in. So just for a quick context, also, I believe George has also mentioned this in the beginning itself, that New Mexico Junior College is not only availing provisioning suite from QuickLaunch. New Mexico Junior College is also kind of engaging with us with respect with the modules like single sign-on and password resets, which through our smart password manager, along with the inbuilt capability of multi-factor authentication and behavioral authentication, or what we call it, adaptive authentication. So that is there. I think we have got a question from Cecil Stoll. You can probably let that us know through you can probably put your question in the Q&A chat box, and we will definitely answer that momentarily. I think and always, participants, you can always just let us know in the comments, in the Q&A section, in the chat section, of course, if the speed of the webinar is going in a very swift manner. Is it like too much to download, or we should be kind of holding on our speed and taking things slowly? We are always flexible with respect to our content that we are probably showing it over here. I think I would rather pass the baton to Brandon and George over here, because the slide that's currently put up on the board right now, it's talking about different pain points, out of which George highly mentioned about the PowerShell scripts. And we all know, we all had our tryst with PowerShell scripts and how shell scripts become so fatigued, and it's homegrown at the end of the day. So it becomes very difficult for us to work with PowerShell scripts. Brandon, passing the baton to you. What do you think on the entire pain points that has been listed on this particular screen, in general, with respect to not only New Mexico Junior College, all round, what generally happens in higher education when it comes to user lifecycle management, the nominal pain points? If you want to talk more about it, probably have a word with George on that. Brandon.
Yeah, absolutely. What we see is a lot of the things you really see on the screen here. So many universities and colleges are still using PowerShell scripts to automate the processes of pushing data from one place to another. And that's very cumbersome. It requires an engineer to constantly be on alert and be able to make modifications as necessary. And in a lot of cases, it was written so long ago, the original engineer isn't even available anymore to update the scripts as necessary. So we provide the provisioning in place of taking over the PowerShell scripts, so they don't have to use those any longer. And it gives you a much more visual look into what's going on with your provisioning and deprovisioning in your system. You can see each record that gets processed, and you can reprocess the data if you need to. Also, we see a lot of stuff with the manual user intervention and getting put into Active Directory in some of the LMS and SIS systems. It's amazing how much work is being put into putting users and passwords into these systems when they should just be automated, and enables the admins to do much more comprehensive work than just the mundane keeping up the user accounts and the user passwords. Is that what you've experienced there, George, when we talk about manual onboarding and PowerShell scripts? Are those some of the things that you ran into as well?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think we provide a GUI interface, a graphical user interface that enables you to really see what's going on in your system, and you don't have these black boxes running in your network environment where you really don't know what's happening, and you just hope the users get provisioned properly and done in real time. Usually, if they're in batch mode, they're not real time, where we can process the data in real time as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned, Brandon, I'd like to elaborate on the, we never knew when a student couldn't access their mailbox. It was just brought to us, when that student tried to do it. With this provisioning from QuickLaunch, there is an acknowledgement table in Banner that writes pretty much everything. And so what we've done, we're leveraging Argos to query that table every 30 minutes and tell me if there's an error that's happened, if there's something that didn't get provisioned. And if there is, which is, it's kind of rare now. I hardly ever get any kind of error reports, but it's technology, things happen. But it's real easy to go into the GUI interface and resync that record. And then it's provisioned right then and there. If there is an error, there's definitely something wrong in the AD side. And so it'll let you know that as well. So that table is very helpful for us.
Yeah, what George is referring to is our write back capability on the provisioning section, and I'll show you that here in a few minutes. But it enables, when you have a target system and a source system that's sending data, you can actually write back to the source with the status of the provisioning record. So you can write back to the source saying it was successful or not successful, and then it's queried, and then they're alerted automatically when a user does not get provisioned properly or successfully, which in his case, obviously, George mentioned that is pretty rare at this point in time with the QuickLaunch platform.
Absolutely. And there's one more thing while you guys were talking that just struck my mind was two things. First of all, one is definitely harping on the same lines that I have personally experienced conversing with a lot of our existing client partners regarding the current setup that they have with provisioning. And one major thing that I have noticed was different compartmentalized or siloed processes. For example, there is one SIS coming in from a different vendor, and that particular SIS system has their own provisioning working. Might be that's working through APIs. There is another enterprise application called the learning management system, let's say Canvas, for example, and that's running their own show over there through provisioning. So there are different applications and provisionings taking place for those different applications separately by compartmentalized or siloed script process. What we generally talk about is amalgamating everything under a one-stop shop, so that at the end of the day, the tenant admin at the end of the day has a one-stop shop, meaning a one centralized module, a self-managed one, by which they can manage the entire user lifecycle, and which will definitely cater traditionally to your SIS systems, to your learning management systems, to your email systems. But we are not only restricting ourselves to these three major traditional umbrella applications. We always extend our arms and connections and connectors to various applications that are there in their infrastructure. So it can be data flow between two different applications, which we call it generally the integrated platform as a service, or IPaaS. It is also like inbuilt inside the provisioning module. So it depends, and it always comes out at the end of the day like a tailor-made package. It is not only restricted between one source system being Banner or Colleague or Genzabar for that matter, and the target system has to be Active Directory. Recently we have done a couple of other implementations whereby it caters basically whereby two applications talk to each other. We have done implementations with Banner for that matter, along with Rafter. Now, Rafter is predominantly a very famous community building application that's gaining traction in recent days in the entire higher education sector. And Rafter is a major application that everybody is looking forward to integrate and configure with their respective identity platforms. So what we have done recently is that we have done that for our preferred client partner, Immaculata University, where we have actually integrated both Banner and Rafter in the same provisioning landscape. And Banner works as an authoritative source of truth in terms of identities, and the user accounts are being pushed into Rafter, whereby corresponding wraps, tags, or usernames are created. So it's an example that I have noticed that different compartmentalized processes or siloed scripts can be, it can be gotten rid of, and everything can be like amalgamated into one particular one-stop shop or a self-service centralized based module, which is the QuickLaunch automated provisioning tool. Shortly, Brandon will also be talking about that provisioning tool. We'll be showcasing a quick short demo, giving both the experience from the front end and the back end. I believe we have probably talked about the major pain points. Our participants, our respected participants, who can always let us know through the chat box and also the Q&A sections, whatever pain points that you have faced, and if you are able to resonate with the kind of discussions that we are having. And if you guys are falling in the same bracket along with us, then we have got some surprise at the end, which is for every participants talking about our solution in a much more detailed manner. Let us probably go to the next slide. This mostly talks about a factual thing that's coming in from the Gartner's report. I believe everyone is very much familiar with respect to the reports that are coming out with respect to cybersecurity, identities, and identity and access management, whether it's coming from Verizon or Gartner or Forrester or anywhere. So it talks about that by 2025, 70% of new access management, governance, administration, and privileged access deployments will be converged identity and access management platforms. It's a very valid point with substantial weightage. Brandon, Jim, any thoughts on this particular fact report that's stated by Gartner? How or where we are heading towards in the coming years with respect to identity and access management altogether?
Yeah, I can answer that, Avi. Thanks. So identity and access management is basically the new perimeter of the network. There's no longer, just your local network. You've got a firewall and that kind of stuff. We've got SaaS in here now. Everything's been moving to the cloud. And as Ben Horowitz says, software is literally eating the world. So with that, the identity is kind of the new perimeter where you really need to focus your security layer. And while we're talking about security, and I think on the other page, something came to mind I wanted to talk about a little bit, being formerly at Okta. I'm so glad I'm not there this week with their security breaches. But what occurred to me is the way that QuickLaunch is handled. A certain architectural thing is none of the QuickLaunch admins are also QuickLaunch users. It's a whole different account. And this kind of benefits in a huge way when you look at it architecturally is if I compromise an Okta admin account, now I've got access to not only the Okta admin console, I've got access to their user console and single sign-on ability to all those administrative applications downstream. So you can see they just they solved the problem of single sign-on very easily and made it very secure. But once that one account is compromised, all their accounts are compromised. And if someone's an Okta admin, they're most likely going to be an admin for other applications as well. With QuickLaunch, and this is just architecturally the way they built the product with security in mind, is the administrative accounts in QuickLaunch are not the same as a user account. They're completely different. They're completely stored in different places. MFA is still securing them. However, you're not going to get access to their end user page and have access to additional applications that they need to be administering. So keeping that perimeter with the identity is where it's really going to go. And identity access management is obviously a huge market, and it's just going to get bigger, and you're going to see a lot more of it in your deployments. Thanks, Avi.
Absolutely, Jim. You were absolutely right on that part, because a lot of new developments are also being taking place from the house of QuickLaunch with respect to exploring new facets. I mean, I think we probably started up with completely a cloud hosted identity services, but now we are kind of retracing our steps back in certain other arenas, whereby we are coming up with our desktop single sign-on and desktop multi-factor authentications in the coming few months. That will be another development from our side. We have already kind of leveraged passwordless authentication also, because we like to go with the flow with that it's happening in the entire world of cybersecurity. If there is any upgrade that's taking place that's going to be benefiting the entire higher education environment with respect to our top-notch security, then we know that these things will be catered, and that's the reason we go to our drawing board, we do our sort of R&D, and we then do our deployments and testing, and we came up with these new modules like passwordless, for example. And of course, in this particular arena of user provisioning, it's not only restricted to banner, as I was mentioning constantly. Like, we have kind of more than 25 to 30 inbuilt connectors, and in the next moment, Brandon will be talking more about what exactly I mean by what exactly I imply by connectors, because connectors mostly means applications at the end of the day. We call it connectors, and we have Banner, Genzabar, Colleague, you name the student information system, we have it in our store because we have made it inbuilt it from the scratch, and that goes to the entire credit goes to our development team of coming up with these connectors. Recently, we kind of developed Zoom, Slate, Blackboard, D2L Brightspace, Workday, Zoom as main connector applications, because we understand that every single ERP applications can form a part of the entire provisioning landscape. And that's how provisioning gets completed. It's not only restricted to these three traditional ones like SIS, LMS, and email systems. It should be much more beyond that. So there will be a lot of things, a lot of developments also taking on the provisioning angle on that part. With that note, I think let's move to the next slide on this. Now, the room will be open for a poll question. I think, Adam, you have already launched the poll, right?
Yes.
Great. So the poll is open for everyone. We'll pause for another, let's say, like 30 seconds max, so that everyone can probably put in their answers. I think we have got the poll and it's up on the screen. Adam, I think we are, sorry?
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
that so many people are using custom homegrown solutions and scripts. So
Exactly.
that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing out there right now. So that makes sense.
Exactly. So I believe, Brandon, what we were talking about in the last 15, 20 minutes, that kind of resonated with everyone, that majorly people are using custom scripts and homegrown solutions, mostly siloed scripts and compartmentalized process. And I think somewhere down the line, the amalgamation or the fusion of all these processes required, so that a one streamlined workflow is kind of devised, I believe.
Yep.
I think this poll was really beneficial for all of us to get a well-rounded context, like what's really happening outside there. I would rather move to the next slide because the poll gave us a lot of more contextual information, and we should be capitalizing on this contextual information in terms of showcasing you like what exactly we have in store for you guys. This primarily talks about the architecture of provisioning. Let me just quickly complete this for everyone. And I would request Brandon rather to talk more about the provisioning architecture. We have been recently talking more about the provisioning architecture in different ways and how we can probably come up with different augmentations to it. But right now it's a robust model that's in place, Brandon. So if you want to take it from here with respect to the architecture and the subsequent demonstration.
Absolutely. As you probably are well aware, we really try to manage the entire life cycle of the user record, whether from onboarding and inception to offboarding, and in some cases with alumni, they have accounts forever at some institutions. So we want to manage that record from beginning to end, and we manage that when we onboard a user. We automate the system so groups and roles are used from Active Directory to be able to give a personalized custom experience for each user. And then the licensing happens, and then they get access and authorization to the different apps that are involved. So obviously authentication and authorization are two very different things. And we want to manage that through roles and privileges throughout the system. Also included in there that Jim had mentioned, you want to lock this thing down with multi-factor authentication, and not only just multi-factor authentication, but adaptive. So it can understand, we truly have a piece of AI built into the product that understands your patterns and your habits and fingerprints you, basically your browser, your machine, your location, all those things are taken into account. And then we give you access based on that information. If anything in that information set changes in your environment, we will then automatically prompt you for another factor of authentication to prove that you're really who you are. And then once we get through that whole process and the term ends at school and they're going to be leaving, and they put in their 4 years or 8 years or whatever they're going, we can revoke the access just as quickly as we do onboarding it. So we revoke access to that. Maybe we move them into a separate container in Active Directory that are disabled. And we could do that automatically with our platform. So you don't have to manually manage all these user records, onboarding, offboarding, and manage those each semester. It's done for you automatically on the back end. Back to you, Avi.
Great. I think after explaining the entire architecture for everyone, the best thing would be probably to showcase or rather address the elephant in the room and showcase the demo altogether, bringing the thing out of the magic box for everyone. At this particular moment, Brandon, I would rather stop my screen sharing. I would pass this over to you to take all the participants who have joined this particular webinar today, taking out their precious time, so that we can showcase them the entire workflow of the automated provisioning from QuickLaunch's side, a quick snapshot or a quick overview of the backend structure, how it's been worked out. So Brandon,
Sure.
if we are all set for that, let me just quickly stop my screen sharing. Give me just a moment. Stage is all yours.
Perfect. So I'm sharing my screen, and what you're seeing here is actually what I was referring to when we have a pane of glass to look into what's going on in the provisioning modules, where with scripts and things we found that you can't see what's going on. You have no idea what's been processed. And if you do find something that has failed, what do I do to fix that? This gives us the ability to walk into any of the environments. You'll see this is New Mexico Junior College's provisioning right here. They processed over 17,000 records in this particular connection. And there's just one process recently, but I can drill down into that and say, what record was processed? Was the record processed successfully? If not, I can resync that data. I can download full reports and go to the change logs So it really gives me an in-depth view of what's going on inside my system. With one panel here, you're going to have each pane of glass is going to be for each connector that you have. You might have one for Banner, you might have one for Canvas, one for Office 365, and get those connections in here, and you can watch what's going on. And like George mentioned, we've got write-back abilities as well, so that you can tell the originating source data store that something failed or it was successful, so you know what's going on. With the limited amount of time that we do have, I'm going to show you quickly the environment. If I go into my connectors, this is what a connector is just simply how do I get to that data store. So in this case, if I go into this connection, it's going to show me information. How do I get into Active Directory? It tells me what are my admin credentials, and how do I authenticate. I take those connections or connectors and I build a connection. When I have two or more connectors, I can build a connection between them. So if you want to build another connection yourself, you can do that. So I'm going to go into the connectors here, and I can create a new connector. I give it a name, and then I can specify what type of connector that is. We cover pretty much everything you can think of in higher education for connectivity, because we talk to all the databases that are underneath most of these applications. So a lot of the applications that we're talking about today are in here: G Suite, Office 365, Canvas. We use Blackboard, or excuse me, Banner uses Oracle connector. And so we can do that. We put the information in and we save it. And now I've got a connection to my system. That's how I connect to my data store. Once I have that connection, I go to connections, and this is the Banner to AD production environment right now for New Mexico. I can start and stop that connector. We don't want to do that. I'm gonna walk you through what the connection does. 5 steps to make this work, and you can do this in your environment. You don't have to have QuickLaunch do this for you if you want to do this. I simply select my source, which was built in my connector, and I select my target. That's all I do in step 1. Where am I what's my data coming from, and where's it going to? Moving to step 2. What this is my schema. I map my schema across from when I go to point A to point B. I want to map those across. You'll notice it's not just as straight as is in all cases. Sometimes you want to customize that, and this is where all the magic happens inside of QuickLaunch. I can put JavaScript in here. I can do anything I want to do to manipulate this data, and I can even build new attributes based on other attributes. For example, my CN right here, my common name, that's going to be my first name plus my last name, and that's going to build the common name for me for Active Directory. I can do the same thing for SAM account names, put domain names on there. I can normalize the data with JavaScript. It's very comprehensive in what I can do in this screen, so it's very powerful. It takes away all the need for coding that you've been doing with your PowerShell scripts. That all goes away, and it's all implemented in this place here. If I move to step 3, this is actually what happens because I have an Active Directory involved. What happens when I purge that user or I deactivate that user? We want to manage the entire life cycle of that user to make sure that they get access and remove access as needed. So do I disable the user here and remove their map groups? Do I disable them and keep the group membership? Or I do simply purge the user. I can even change the organizational unit that they belong to. So maybe if you keep your alumni, maybe you have an alumni organizational unit, we can move them into that container automatically for you. So this is how we maintain and manage the disabling of accounts as well as the provisioning of accounts. Now, another thing that you can utilize is email notification. As part of the provisioning package, I repeat, this is part of the provisioning package, not an additional cost. We have a full event notification management tool built into the product. So anytime any event takes place inside the system, for example, a new user, a new welcome mail gets sent out to everybody in the system. Anytime an update might happen on a record, maybe a surname changed, maybe a phone number changed, you can email notification all those people or SMS and let them know that change took place and it was okay if there's a problem to contact their administrator. So we have a full event notification tool built inside the product. Moving to step 4, this is what George talked about with his write back status. So when you go from your source to your destination information, when that record is written, you can write back the object GUID and the provisioning status. Was it successful? Was it not? And the system date and the write back field, they're writing back that record was purged, okay, for this particular connection. So I'm writing back from my destination back to the source that it was successful or it failed. And then in George's case at New Mexico, they're monitoring that. Excuse me. They're monitoring that to take action. If it is not accurately processed, they're going to take action and move on that right away. And the last step, which is probably the most important, but it's very easy, is how often do you want this thing to run? In this case, it's every 15 minutes. You can run this real time. In a lot of cases, there's a database out there that gets dumped once a night, and you want to process that data once a day. So I just simply put once a day, let that process run, and it processes that database. So all that information is then transferred over to where it's supposed to be. So then I have all these connections. If I've got a green arrow here, that means it's actively running and it's successfully running, and it keeps all my information up to date. I wanted to show you real quickly, we have this event management tool. You can build your own templates, put your own logos in there, and you can actually use inside these templates, these email templates, there's an HTML editor that you can build these templates. I'll go here, and there's a monitoring one, but I can create a template and I can put whatever I want inside of here, including the attributes that are being processed at the time. So I can put a variable in here for SAM account name, CN, what the provisioning changes were when they processed. It's very versatile in that way. If there's any questions about provisioning technically, please post that in the chat and we can try to get to those questions as soon as we can. Avi, back to you.
Thanks, Brandon. Meanwhile, when you were giving the demonstration, I was answering as much as questions possible. We have a couple of questions that are there, which I don't think with this time frame I'll be able to answer everything. So we will take a couple of questions. Rest, we will be sharing all the answers through our broadcast email. Couple of questions that are there. First of all, the one that I can see is that's came up from someone who is not willing to disclose his or her name, but it's not a problem. Can we see provisioning or deprovisioning data in real time, Brandon?
Actually, you can. The data is all, you can run reports. You can see what I showed you on the dashboard. That is updated instantaneously. So those panes of glass that you're showing the records being processed, you can see that data. We don't stream out the data so you can monitor a log file. We don't do that. It's all done on the back end, and we have a GUI interface so you can see real time what's going on in your system.
That's really great. I think there is another one, and this is a very good question in terms of, because all throughout the webinar, we probably didn't get a chance to throw some light on the implementation part, because that's also a big thing, because we all talk about the product, the features associated with it, but alongside how will be, let's say, the after sales service, how would be the implementation or the project onboarding of this entire module. There's a question stating that if our institution has somewhere around 10,000 FTE, what's the expected timeline for SIS to AD provisioning implementation, Brandon?
We actually have a full team of experts doing all the setting up of accounts and systems for provisioning. We're usually, under 6 weeks. I'm giving you a ballpark figure, and to get everything up and running provisioning wise. So that would be a ballpark guess on my part. It depends on the complexity of the system, so I can't say exactly, but some are much more complex than others. Ones that are very simple and straightforward, you're just trying to connect banner to AD, we can do that in relatively short amount of time. If you're trying to implement, 10 different applications, then we're talking a couple of months to get that implemented. hopefully
And we're
that
very good
helps.
at moving it. Sorry, Avi, I wanted to add in a little bit. We're very good at moving at the speed at which you want us to move. We've got a large team dedicated to this. So really, as quickly as you want to move, we're comfortable moving that speed as well.
That's
I can
Thank you, Avi.
absolutely
elaborate.
right. Yep.
I can elaborate on that as well from our
Yeah.
experience. I think we started this project in the fall, and we were completely done with our student provisioning in May of the next year. And that was due to us having the O365 migration, and at the same time, a lot of the work depended on my side. The biggest thing was, I had to create a pretty big view in Banner. That's where all the provisioning is done. We did a materialized view, and we didn't use Active Directory a lot before this, and now we're starting to. And so we wanted to automate as much as that membership in there. And so that's what kind of took me the longest, was trying to get all the memberships and groups created, or figured out how to do that on the Banner side. And so it really just depends on how quickly you can get that part done. Like you said, the QuickLaunch team, they were ready to go, and everything I threw at them, they had a solution for. So that's our experience, at least.
Thanks, George. I mean, that's really a valid point, because there's another question from James Shan stating that, how do you create mailbox in Office 365 after the account is provisioned in the Active Directory? So Brandon, your thoughts on this? How do you create mailbox in Office 365 after the account is provisioned in the AD?
A lot of times the Active Directory on the back end is in Microsoft itself is being transferred into Azure AD, and that gets provisioned that way. And then what we typically do is add the licenses onto those accounts. So we can provision user accounts, but licensing is the main thing that's required that we do.
And adding to that, Brandon's point also, that and the same kind of implementation has been done from New Mexico Junior College. However, the connector that's in place for Office 365, because occasionally we have seen most of the time that either the Active Directory AD sync is running from the customer's end in their environment, or we have seen the Azure AD Connect or Azure AD Sync is running with one of their Microsoft tenants, be it faculty or staff. And that's how the mailboxes gets created. So we had to take care of account licensing and unlicensing of those accounts. But this is also important to mention that the connector for Office 365 that's there in our infrastructure for QuickLaunch, the codes have already been written for creating users, creating groups, and assigning groups and users. So we can always explore that arena also. If at all, let's say, for example, if you do not want to rely on the Active Directory sync or on the Azure AD Connect, we can look for the other options, because we have codes written in our connectors which can actually work in creating mailbox in that particular direction way. So that is another option to look out. George, you were saying something? Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna, that's how we do our O365 membership or licensing, is where we add a membership to in AD, and then it picks it up from that. And so we have, if there's staff, we have O365 staff, and then we have one for the students as well.
Great. Let's take one last question. Rest, we will be answering everything as a part of our broadcast communication after the webinar. The last question is from Matt Donaldson. He is asking about, at our school, we provision students in Azure Active Directory only, and employees in both Azure and local AD. Can this solution provision solely into Azure AD? So it's basically right now they're provisioning students into Azure AD and employees into both Azure and on-prem. Let's find one single solution so that everything can be provisioned into Azure itself. That's the question.
Absolutely, we can provision to Azure AD as well as a local Active Directory. So we can very much meet your needs and synchronize to one or the other, or both, for that matter. Our system is flexible enough to handle multiple directories, multiple source directories. So if you have even had multiple trees or multiple forests, we can handle that system as well.
Great. I mean, that's a well-rounded answer. I believe that kind of brings us almost to the end of our Q&A session. There are a couple of other questions also, but for the best interest of everyone's time, we'll be sharing all those answers that are part of our broadcast email right after the webinar, along with the webinar recording link. We have one last thing, probably that was a surprise for everyone. It's practically talking about, at the end of the day, everything boils down to one particular thing. The solution might be good, the features might be good, the purpose that's it's solving. Of course, once we take a deep dive demonstration with our participants who have already dialed in for this webinar, if they're expressing their interest, and we'll be having one-on-one conversations on doing a deep dive, then at the end of the day, you'll be able to figure out how well it's fitting into your infrastructure and everything. But at the end of the day, every decision will boil down to cost. I believe if CIOs or IT directors are in this particular call and they're listening to me, I think this is the one where major either the show starts or the show ends. So I believe this is the main thing that we'll be talking about. So we have an exclusive offer for all the webinar attendees who have taken out their precious time and attended the webinar. It's right up on your screen. This is basically $500 per month. And we're assuming with an FTE of 2 users, and $500 per month roughly kind of attributes to $6,000 annually. And QuickLaunch operates in the annual business model, because our main contracts, our engagements generally with our customers revolves around annual billing. We don't bill monthly, we bill annually to our customers and to our all higher education partners, understanding the entire budget scenarios and how the entire budget structure works over there. So keeping all those facets in mind, we have came out with this particular pricing. Apart from this, just for a quick expectation setting along with this pricing, you can have, I mean, these prices are not only dependent on the kind of applications, it is also factored in towards the full-time enrollment that's already mentioned. But you can come up with a number of applications or ERP solutions for that matter. Whatever you are seeing on the picture in this particular slide, we support our realms of engagement and implementation extends beyond this suite of enterprise applications. We have done way more than these enterprise applications throughout our last 7-8 years of hardcore implementation of automated provisioning. So the main terms and condition will be that, of course, along with this particular price, there definitely would be an implementation, support, and managed service cost. Quickly throwing some light on that, we will be having much more deep dive conversations around that part when we head on to one-on-one conversations with our attendees separately. But the implementation cost actually includes, or rather, I would say the managed service cost, we're calling it a managed service cost. It's a package altogether. It includes implementation, it includes your customer support, that's after sales support. It includes your monitoring, which includes your entire network monitoring your monitoring your VPN tunnels for connectivity, monitoring the connector connections. And of course, it includes troubleshooting. It includes, as I already mentioned, the professional services implementation. Along with that, the most fundamental important thing is you get a technical account manager who would be actually dedicated for that particular account, and will be working solely on that particular account, whether it be it's troubleshooting, whether it be it's answering queries, whether it's sharing executive reports every month. So those things are a part of the entire managed service program, which we'll be talking one-on-one with our different attendees who are expressing their interest in this particular product going forward. And one thing for everyone, you'll be seeing me a lot as a part of the post-sales process, because since I'm taking care of the customer success engagements, you'll be seeing me and Jim having conversations, having executive connects and QBRs with you, and always trying to make you guys successful in your IT endeavors and having a secure IT posture with user lifecycle management, so that if you are successful, at the end of the day, the product is successful. So that's the way it works. I believe, let us know your feedback also, like how the webinar was in terms of conversations, content could have been much more better. If you have any other feedbacks for us with respect to the entire flow of webinar, the product and everything, we'll be waiting to hear all those things from your side. But rest, have a great day ahead. Jeff had already raised a hand. Jeff, probably for the best interest of time, can we take this offline, Jeff, if that's okay? Probably your another hand will give me a green signal. Great. I think then we would be ending this. Have a great day ahead and have a great rest of the week. and then have a great weekend. See you all probably
you,
in one-on-one
everybody.
conversations. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Avi, for hosting.
Thank you.